I just felt like doing that because this is the behind the scenes of today with Pastor Jay. My highly esteemed guest is none other than Sharon Demers, State Committee woman. Boom, 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 boom. You're also the, what is it? Hold on, don't tell me. Chair of Congressional District 6 Caucus
Correct. For the Republican Party.
for the Republican Party. Yes, got that too. State Committee woman
It's the
chair.
first time Flagler County has ever been represented.
Oh, wow. Super cool. All right, you ready? Okay, we're going to try the music. Okay.
You are now tuned in to Today with Pastor Jay on WNZF News Radio, where we discuss inspiring and informative news. And now here's your host, Pastor Geraldine Denny.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Wake up, good morning, and welcome to the show where faith meets action and purpose, where it finds its platform. I'm your host, Pastor Geraldine Denny, and today I'm joined with Sharon Demers. She's the Flagler County State Committee woman and chair of the Congressional District for the Republican Party for here for CD6.
Congressional District 6. Thank you for having me on the
Yes.
show today, Pastor Jay. I'm excited.
And before we started, you did remind me that this is the first time that Flagler County has been represented.
Yes, Flagler County has never held a position on the executive board of the Republican Party on a state level before.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it's a little bit of responsibility, but not too much. Nothing I can't handle.
I'm wondering if this is the first time if it that it's been a woman
Well,
for the definitely for Flagler
for
County.
Flagler County, but there's other women on the board. But
Mhm.
and this year it looks like it's about 50%. It was never that high before. In the 12 years that I've been going to the meetings, it's always been, like 3 ladies out of 27, and now it's about 50%.
Let's talk about women for a minute because I
Sure.
posted on social media last night that when um, men do all these wonderful and fabulous things, men say that there's everyone say that they're successful.
Hmm.
When women do it, men start hollering, "Oh, you're so busy, you need to stop."
Oh, that's true.
I'm so
Oh,
sick of that.
yeah, we're
I'm raw
busy.
about it right now. Can you tell?
Right.
I'm so raw
We
about
are
that.
busy. We're used to carrying a baby on a hip and a grocery bag on the other one.
What happened with why we just can't be successful? Why we have to be busy?
Busy.
You're doing too much. What
Too
happened that
much.
we just can't be successful?
I
What's
don't
wrong with that?
I don't know. But
It's the same fight, equal pay, equal rights, equal
mhm.
everything. I think we're still dealing with that today.
Yeah, it's on some levels. On
Mhm.
some levels, absolutely. And when I first went into management with a major uh, quick service chain,
Right.
I had to fight for my first paycheck because they were trying to pay me less than they were paying the boys.
Right.
So I reminded them that I'm better than the boys. So you need to pay me the same or more. And they
Right.
did. They
Well,
did.
I got to give it to President Trump because he has a lot of women in his cabinet. He
Absolutely.
does. He's leading the way. He really does. But let's talk about Christian civic engagement and why it matters, how it works, and what's at stake if we stay silent. So I want to welcome you to the show. What does local government really look like behind the scenes? And if anybody knows, you know, because you started licking stamps way back in the day.
Yes. When I was 4 years old, my brother and I would argue over who would lick the envelope and who licked the stamp. My father was a state representative in Pennsylvania, and I always lost. He was older than me, so. But
So what did you always lost, but which one did you have
I
to
had to
lick?
lick the envelope. And they had no self-sticking stamps in those days or self-sticking envelopes, so
Right.
it was not fun. But that was okay. We were part of the team.
Mhm.
So local government is guided by local boards. So each department in a county has or city or school has boards. Now, in for an example, in Flagler County here, and most counties in the state of Florida, we have many boards. We have emergency management, school board, library board. The school has a book review committee, parks and recreation, zoning boards, public safety, land acquisition. There's a committee that I used to be on called the SHIP committee, which helps to fund affordable housing. And that was my eye opener for how important it is for the local people to get on the boards. Otherwise, it's an echo chamber.
Mm.
Now, so an example of why it's important. Christians have always taken a back seat
Mhm.
when it comes to government. They have far too long believed and felt like second class citizens in the civic arena. They were always present but not heard.
Mm.
And it's time to reclaim that voice, not with arrogance, not with partisanship, but with clarity and conviction for the love of the Lord. How did we end up having transgenders read books in our libraries? How did that ever happen?
Mm.
That never I didn't even know what a transgender was until, I was probably 40 years old. And I thought, that's a different group of people. But it was not in the mix of my daily life. Why are we putting this in front of our children in their daily life? But other things that you might not think about, the emergency medical management. Remember that committee?
Mhm.
Right? So they are the ones that made up the COVID rules. They're the
That's
ones
true.
that locked down our community.
Mhm.
And there is a board called the Emergency Medical Management Board.
Right.
So what happens is the local citizens that volunteer for these boards, and you have to have some kind of qualifications. So
Right.
maybe for that board, you might be an EMT, you might be a nurse, you might be a healthcare provider of some sort. Maybe you're, at home or hospice provider. So those boards meet and they make recommendations to the head of that position, and that person takes those recommendations to the council people, the elected officials. So the boards are guiding the hand
Mm.
of the paid government employee to help to present the information to the county commission, city council, even state representatives, I'm
So
sure.
Christians really should consider joining these boards
Right.
and these committees and these councils because their voices can be heard and they're guiding this.
They are. They are helping to
So they're
decide.
influencing policy. They don't have to be elected. And I've
No.
said that before.
Mhm.
I've joined a lot of boards.
Right. You
you know
always were on boards.
Yeah, I'm on all these boards. People think I'm running for office.
Uh-huh.
No. And I've lived that way. We have what you call the seven mountains of influence. Is something that the church talk about all the time. You don't always have to serve in an elected position. You can influence. And I always say I like to influence those that are making the decisions. You can pray for them. There's so many different things that you can do. So what kind of spiritual mindset should believers bring into civic spaces? Because people, oh, you shouldn't have Christians there. That's not true.
No, no. Well, this is a Christian community that we live in,
That's true.
for one thing.
People forget that.
Flagler County is a Christian community, but I guess I could say the non-Christians, the non-believers, or even the left-leaning, so to
Hmm.
speak, uh, Christian churches have had no problem speaking up in the past.
Hmm.
And the more conservatives were always afraid of losing their charity designation. And as you covered in your last show, the Supreme Court ruled that it's not a problem. They
Right.
they can endorse candidates, but there's other things too. Think about this, like Parks and Recreation. They approved all the Pride events.
Oh, wow.
Think about that. Uh, our own school board made national news with the book of All Boys Aren't
Blue.
Blue.
I remember that book.
And I went to couple school board meetings concerning that because I couldn't understand how this subject matter would end up in middle school books in
Right.
schools.
Well, we've got to take a break and we're going to talk about that. From zoning boards to medical oversight, these decisions shape daily life. And after the break, Sharon's going to walk us through some real world examples, some additional world examples of why Christians belong at the table. So don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. You are listening to Today with Pastor Jay. We'll be right back with Sharon Demers because public service isn't just about policies, it's about calling. Ready? Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's get specific, Sharon. You've served on boards and you've seen how local decisions are made. And what can our listeners learn? Because you cited a few examples before the break. Let's walk through some of these examples about what can happen with contracting, zoning, emergency management, all these things, etc. What kind of examples in Flagler County show the spiritual tension and civic decisions are making? You talked about like the pride walks. You've talked about the
Mhm.
books. Um,
Okay, so just right now, public safety is an issue.
okay.
How about the e-bikes?
Mm.
They can go up to 28 miles per hour in e-bike.
I was thinking about getting one of those.
I know. I think they look like fun, but what's happening is children as young as 12 are on these e-bikes and they're in our parks zipping through the paths.
That's true.
And we are a senior community also. We're 30% over 60 here. So that could be cause an accident. So if I were on that committee, I would be talking about, okay, they can only use their pedals on the e-bike on a
Oh,
on
that makes sense.
on a county or city trail. Um, Land acquisition. We need to protect our wetlands. Our county is a farming community.
Hmm.
They're talking about building, I don't know, over 7,000 houses off of Old Hall Creek Road, which ran into a farmer looking at canning jars at the local department store here.
Mm.
And he told me, he said, if you get out of your truck, you're knee high in water in that area. So that is wetlands. And if we eliminate where the water can drain, what's going to happen to our roads and our homes and our neighborhoods? How about industrial development authority? Recently, we talked about the county was talking about, and the city of Palm Coast, which turned it down, fuel storage tanks abutting a subdivision.
Mm.
Now, I don't agree that it should abut a subdivision. I do agree that we should have one. I think it will lower our fuel prices here in the community, and it would also help us if there's an emergency, if we have a hurricane, we will be have our fuel very quickly.
You think Christians are more discerning, in terms of, well, yeah, of course we are,
Hmm.
between right and wrong and making better decisions?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think that
I know about that, but go ahead.
myself as a Christian, I look at all sides.
Right.
You know, like
That's true.
like
That makes sense.
like building a fuel storage tank is not a popular item to get
Hmm.
behind. Having owned a gas station, I understand the
Right.
need to have the gas close to your location, and I know it will definitely affect the price. It's not a popular decision, but it needs to be in the right place. So we need to be open minded. Um, the the back to the medical rules. They were pushing HPV vaccination
Oh, yeah, I
to
remember
to
that.
do that in the schools some years back, and that's only needed if you're sexually active. Like people that need that vaccine have sex with more than 100 people, and if you're raising your children Christian, they're not going to be thinking about sex at 13 or
It
having
better
sex
not
with
be.
100 people. I know where
Uh,
they would be in the corner of
that's
my
a
house.
listen. I
So
told my children they couldn't have sex till they get married.
there you go.
I mean, but they don't teach stuff like that anymore.
No,
I told my children they couldn't date they were married too, so I didn't know if I was a good parent or not.
my,
I don't know.
I don't know if you want to keep this on here, but remember when Michael Jordan had AIDS? The basketball player? Which one had AIDS?
I think I was not.
Michael
It wasn't Michael Jordan. I
Michael
think it was
Jordan.
Michael Johnson, Magic Johnson. I
Magic
think it was.
Johnson,
I
right.
think somebody Johnson.
My son was
Was it?
about
Yeah.
about 10 and he asked me, "Oh, how did he get that?" And I said, "He had sex with someone that wasn't his wife."
Oh, that was a good one.
What are you going to say? Like how do you say that? How does that happen? And that was a long time ago.
Oh wow.
That was 30 years ago.
Mm.
But those are the kinds of I don't know, that's
Oh, I think he
just
had HIV. I don't think he had
HIV.
AIDS.
He didn't have AIDS. He had
That's right.
HIV.
It had to come back to me. That was a long time
I hope
ago.
we can edit this.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Um, so one of the committees I was on was the Affordable Housing Committee, and
Mm-hmm.
in our county, they're awarded $985,000 a year. Nine hundred
Wow.
eighty-five thousand dollars a year, and what they do is they do down payment assistance, and they would always choose single moms. And originally, they were giving $40,000 to a single mom. Maybe they worked in a medical office and they had two kids, And I was just concerned when I looked at the numbers. Now, their mortgage was only going to be around $500. And I looked at the mortgage and I said, wow, she's one car payment away or one car breakdown away or hot water heater going, and she won't have enough money to make that $500 a month
Wow.
payment. So I asked the director of the
Mm-hmm.
fund in the county how many houses we lost because Flagler County is third on the mortgage, and we'd lost 7 houses in 7 years.
Wow.
So, and we had helped about 5 or 6 people get into houses
Well,
over each year.
well, let me ask you issues like you mentioned before, like the pride events, but even marijuana store placements
Oh, absolutely.
and then the policies of the library. Last year, our public library had this huge display of these obscene books.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, they had these books that were not allowed in the school libraries. They had them all on display. All the stuff with the pornography and all the vulgar words. They had them on huge display. Are they there? Are those things connected to board decisions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did look up some of the books recently
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that they were in the adult section or they were in the young adult section. Some of the ones that our school district took off their shelves are
Okay.
now in those sections. But to just have a, like, let's take a look and see what's being, what are they called? The book ban. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a book ban.
There's no. Yeah.
There
There's.
used to be a room in every movie store when you rented a movie
Mm-hmm.
that
I
they
remember
that
that.
you had to have an ID to get into.
Remember back in the day, the stuff that was rated X is now rated
R,
R,
yes,
and the stuff that's rated R now is rated PG-13.
exactly.
And then before you know it, the PG-13 stuff is going to be rated G.
G.
Yeah,
I I
it's
bel
getting bad.
I believe that that whole rating system, that's a board that Christians need to be on
That's true.
because that's all bring coming into our children's lives at a very early age where and also the video games
Oh, don't get me started on
that
that.
create the violence and where kids think it's, oh, you just shoot them and they stand back up.
What do you think happens when Christians aren't present in these rooms and they're not on the boards?
I think the world turns into what we've just experiencing where there's just like things just don't make sense. And when you think about it, the Bible's been here for so long and it was written by so many people who recanted the same history, the same facts. How can we not believe in what's in the Bible and believe that that is is our roadmap? How we have to understand that that is our roadmap
Mm.
for our lives, our public life, our private life, our our life as parents, our life as public officials. That is our roadmap.
All right. Well, it is easy to post opinions online, but it's influence in the room that makes the difference. So, coming up, we're going to talk about how Christians can step in with wisdom, love, and courage. And special thanks to our sponsors, Judah One Aviation, Church on the Rock, and Great Eagle Strategies. You are listening to Today with Pastor Jay, where we just don't talk faith, we live it. More ahead with Sharon Demers. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay.
Now what? I hope you can edit that out.
Oh, yeah, we get it. But we are live streaming.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. That's what's called. I make mistakes all the time. That's the great part. I do. We good on time? Did I do better this time? Okay.
Should I talk about this part about the
Let me see.
the giving the money to couples?
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
And then I'll ask if there's one last thing that you want to mention. You gonna? Okay. Alrighty. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're closing out with action. And Sharon, how can believers go from passion to participation? Where can someone learn about open board positions in Flagler County? Because, you see these things posted somewhere, I think, sometime.
Well,
And is it a lot of nepotism here? It seemed like, especially at the school board. And let's start with the school. I mean, I can go and see husband and wife teams and brothers and sisters and everybody know everybody,
mhm.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. I think it's probably like that at the sheriff's department too. Is it that it's a small town? Oh,
Uh,
maybe they didn't know each other and then they got married because they met each other on the job. That could be it.
well, I know that there are several county commissioners. There's one county commissioner for sure. His wife works for the county, and then a former county commissioner that has since passed away. His wife worked for the county too.
Right.
And same with a lot of the departments. There are
Maybe they met on the job.
that no, there's children that work there,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
yeah, no. So one of the things
I,
when
I tried to help them out.
back to the school board, there was the book review committee. So there was this group. There is this group in Flagler County,
Hmm.
Moms for Liberty, who was, carrying the flag for that,
Right.
to get that smut out of the schools. So I looked up everyone on the book review committee, and there was, I think, 12 women.
Hmm.
So there was no men, and I thought there should have been a man or
Right.
two to make it a balanced committee. And all but all of them were in the teacher's retirement plan.
What?
Every single person was a former teacher or a current teacher of some sort. Two, all of them were, no, not all of them. Three of them were not registered Democrat. And out of those three, two were independent and one was a Republican. So there were no conservative. There was one conservative voice on the whole thing, and she was a teacher. So I didn't think it was a balanced committee.
It wasn't.
When I was on the ship,
Well, I appreciate you and commend you for looking it up.
yeah,
Thank you for that, by
yeah.
the way.
When I was on the ship committee, um, there was mostly realtors on that committee.
Hmm.
I was at an at-large position, and my qualification was is that I was a landlord. I had owned rental properties at the time.
Okay.
So you needed to, know something about real estate. But they were mostly, there was out of the 12 people on that committee, 3 of us were conservatives. The rest were not, and I knew them from around town, and I knew
Right.
that they were not conservatives, and I'd never heard them talk about their church or their faith.
Right.
So that doesn't mean that they don't have any faith.
So, what's your encouragement to believers who feel underqualified or
Mm.
afraid to speak out?
Well,
And how can they still learn about these positions? Where
well,
can they go?
you find them on the county website,
Okay.
and you just keep on clicking through, and eventually you'll get a board position opened. And a lot of people are tired of serving on the boards, and they don't, if they knew someone was interested. So you might look and say, "Oh, I know Joe. Maybe he can give me an in on how
Or
to get
maybe
on a
they don't
board."
know anyone. Just show up. That's what that's how I started serving. I
Mhm.
just started showing up. I just go. The, there's a sign that says everyone's welcome.
Right? Every
I,
they're
I,
not
I'm everyone.
they're not usually closed.
I just show up.
They
That's
only
what I did.
Yeah,
People would ask me, how do you get to go to these things? I just
just
show
show up.
up.
Hmm.
That's how it started. I
And
just show up.
and they're all advertised on the website for sure, and some
Okay.
of them are announced in the paper or on social media, especially if they're controversial.
Right. Well, take a moment to encourage someone who feels, um, underqualified
Oh gosh.
or afraid to speak out.
Oh, you can't be. You have to. You just have to go for it. If you're. I became passionate about that ship committee when I read a story about a woman that had 7 children. One, the oldest was 22, and the youngest was 2 weeks old. And I thought, and they're going to give her a house. How do you keep having babies if you can't manage what you have already? Like why did and there were no dads around, and they were all different dads. So I thought she was living an irresponsible life, and someone should have taken her aside and taught her about, sex outside the marriage was, one thing that's important. And it's okay to have many children. I think you just need to be able to provide for them before you have children. And I thought that they should have given houses to couples, husbands and wives that have a couple kids that are struggling, to meet their high rents. Help let 2 people help pay that mortgage. Let you know.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just thinking of the hate mail you're about to get.
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I've got big shoulders. I can handle it. It rolls
I
off.
didn't mean to laugh that hard. Oh,
No, I one.
Sharon Demers at gmail.com.
Oh yeah, thanks. Gee, thanks. But after reading that in the paper, I thought, my goodness, how is she going to maintain this house?
That's true.
Sh-
I
How?
help people a lot, and people will call
Yeah.
me and say, "Hey, I want to. Can you help me with my light bill? Can you help me with my rent, my
Mhm.
mortgage, whatever?" And I want to help people. I help people that are homeless, and I,
Mhm.
I want to put you in a home. But how do you maintain this after I help you?
Right.
Because it doesn't help. It doesn't help. I can't help you if you can't help yourself. So
Mhm.
I get the principle.
Mhm.
I really do, and I support it
Yeah.
wholeheartedly.
Right. I
Yeah,
volunteer at a
absolutely, I
at a
support it.
church thrift
Mm-hmm.
store, and they have been giving free
Yeah,
things for 13 years to the same people.
yeah,
We've only enabled them.
right,
So, there's a different business model that's going to happen where we're going to try to help the whole person. But
right.
we cannot continue to enable people.
Right.
And to me, I scraped and saved to get into my first house.
Mhm.
And I
I
live
get it.
within my means,
Right. I get
you
it.
know.
Well, I thank you so very much for sharing and coming out and being bold enough to speak your
Yes.
truth today. It's been a blessing. And Sharon, you have showed us that influence doesn't come from noise, it comes from presence.
Right.
And the presence of believers in decision making spaces and advisory roles in the heart of community leadership. So, you know what I say, guys? Yesterday's gone, tomorrow isn't promised. What are you going to do today? Today, you look up the next city council meeting. Maybe you apply to serve on a board. Maybe you say yes to the assignment God's been nudging you toward. Until next time, God bless you. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.
Okay. So, one thing on air, the city council is looking for people on their charter advisory board.
Oh,
So, you each city council person, I believe, is going to be able to appoint somebody.
okay. Stay
So,
faithful, stay
yep.
activated. God
Mm-hmm.
bless you.
Thank you.